It's episode 103.
The Ultimate Deck Podcast. Need a show about outdoor living? This is where it's at with your hosts, Shane Chapman and Way Laurent. Thank you for tuning in. Now let the show begin. Yeah. The Ultimate Deck Podcast. Let's go.
Let's go.
And then Banana Land right in the middle, and then
Okay.
now
Restate the topic.
Are we back live?
We're back live.
Okay.
God, Bryce.
I'm
See,
sorry.
You got a little bit too technical.
I did. I bit off more than I could
Not
chew.
enough bandwidth
No.
in the internets up here in the igloos. Are we live again, though?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, we're live again.
Whenever
I'm not.
Scott's back.
But anyway,
That's
okay.
all that matters.
So to reiterate, because we lost the internet here and the Instagram live, to reiterate for those fine people, we are going to talk today about how we just a discussion about how will COVID affect the 2021 season. We all know how things went this year with COVID, but back in March and April, nobody had any freaking idea how this thing was going to go. And so what we're going to talk about today is like speculation basically around how COVID might affect 2021.
From the experts.
Nope. Nope. Like in hindsight, we played that. If somebody was to look at me like, boy, you guys played that really smart. And we're like, yeah, bullshit luck, right? Like we just we took a huge risk and it turned out, but that could have just as easily went really bad. Yeah. So we just got a number of questions here we're going to go through and just talk about. This is not answers. Don't base decisions off what we're talking about and then be like, well, you guys said, because you got any idea?
don't know.
You have any clue?
No.
Nope. Me neither.
First pandemic for me.
I think I'm actually
Yeah,
gonna
I think that's
Bryce?
the first one I've been through.
I'm actually going to let Bryce do the booking this year.
I'm just rolling the
chimpanzee at the
dice. I'm
keyboard.
just picking
Smash,
numbers.
smash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first question
Here's how much money you have. Don't spend more than this.
Good luck. First question we have jotted down here is more setting the context. Do you think that people are going to be traveling again next year?
I know I will. Like if it opens up and we're allowed to start to travel again, I'll go. I don't have nearly as
But do
many
you
concerns.
think it will open up? I guess is more, I think, the question.
I do think it will open, but I think a lot of people are still going to be uncomfortable with going. Like I have friends that still didn't send their kids back to school. They're just like, they're not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
They're working from home. Their kids aren't in school.
Yeah.
And they're just like, so, and I have a really tough time with that because as far as like, that's their life, their decision. They do what they want. But like you and I, we haven't had any change at all. Like I would say that my work life is not any different this year than it was last year as far as like COVID rules. We have hand sanitizers and we have face masks in the store, but we still operate at the same desks. We still sell the same products. We do a little bit better job of staying back from people and we do a bit better job of wiping things down, but okay, we just have better hygiene, which is probably something we needed to do anyways, right?
You're telling me my wife's been on me for years. I would be curious to hear, not to dive into this hole too deep, but I would be curious to hear about the people who chose to keep their kids home from school this year in hindsight and legitimate opinion, not a politicized, like, what do I think what do I need to say because I made a decision back then and it was politically driven and whatever else. Those people kept their kids home from school, I think, because they thought that by kids going back to school that there was going to be some sort of mass outbreak in schools. And there hasn't been. There's been the odd school that's had a case or two here or there. But for the most part, it's been pretty quiet. And of course, now in Saskatchewan, the numbers are climbing overall, but it's not driven out of the schools. It's like, it's still a wedding happened or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I know in Regina, anyway, when the kids went back to school, the case counts were at 0 there just before they went back to school. And people were like, you can't be sending the kids back to school. It's like, there's 0 cases. If 0 is not the number, what is the number?
Yeah.
Like, no, it doesn't mean that it's forever going to be 0, that it's not going to come back. It doesn't mean that there is actually 0. Like, I'm sure there's people out there that have it and they just haven't been tested, but obviously it's not that bad to the ones that have it then or whatever.
Yep.
And so I feel like this whole go back to school thing has been fairly smooth here. I don't know about other markets.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So like my kid's back in school. He's been at Sheldon Williams Collegiate. There's not been any cases. It's been fairly, like it's been uneventful. You drop them off, they wear face masks all day, and then he comes home like a normal school day, and nothing's happening outside of the precautions they've been taking are different. But
and high school kids are arguably the dumbest kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, hormones, they're all right. Like,
yeah. Little kids aren't bad, right? You just put your mask on. Okay.
Yeah.
Put their mask on.
You can hold them back too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
don't know. I don't think that we're going to. I don't think that we're going to see the borders open up. Not for the start of the season, anyway. I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of people planning trips next year. Like maybe within Canada again. Like
so,
I think just about half my Facebook news feed was in Banff this year. And and great. So let's travel and explore our own country.
We really should. So next year, I think everybody should head east. I don't know that Newfoundland and PEI want that, but but really, like that's probably one of the most beautiful parts of our whole country is out on the East Coast, and nobody goes there. So anyways, I think it's great for our own economy to do that, to travel a little more east and west.
Sure. But so anyways, that's what I think. Like just to set the context or the pretext to the rest of these questions here, I don't think people are going to be traveling again next year. This whole like border ban has been pushed back month by month, every month, and the numbers are only climbing right now quite a bit. And so that's not opening on the horizon.
My argument would be that even if it does open, people are not going to be comfortable with it because schools opened and there was a lot of people that weren't comfortable with that either.
Yeah.
So
I think it's going to be status quo as far as travel goes. People are going to be home again. So then that leads to the next questions. The reason that we had a bit of a boom this year was because people were home. They weren't traveling, weren't spending money. They were like, hey, we're home. We should put some money into our house. We're here anyway. Maybe they have a DIY project to do, or maybe it's just like, we're not spending money on that trip to Romania. So we'll build a deck, or we'll build a screen room, or we'll renovate the kitchen, or whatever. That was happening. So now if people are home again next year and not traveling a bunch, do you think that's going to continue to happen? Or the question we should tackle at this moment, do you think the season next year is going to slow down?
This is a really, 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 really tough one.
So let's talk about like why would it slow down? What are the reasons for it slowing down if that were to happen?
Because the people that were going to do it in the next few years already did this year.
Right.
And so it was like, yeah, you know what? In 2022, I'm going to do that deck.
Yeah.
It's a little bit worn out, but I can get a few more years out of it.
Yeah.
And then now you have time. And it's like, oh, okay, well, let's move that ahead. Argument could be made that there was people that are, 5 to 7 years out and they're going to move that. They're going to move that ahead. So
yeah, that could just keep happening, right? That's one theory within the industry and the calls that I've been on is that some people are saying like, I think there's going to be a lull next year because a lot of people that would have built next year did it this year because they had time and they weren't going anywhere and they had extra money. So they pulled their projects forward. That's why we had the boost this year.
The other like side to that is that people were like scared to do anything. So they just waited. They're like, I'm not going to build a deck this year. I'm going to wait and see what happens. And then now they know that it's pitted in, right? Now they know that COVID's pitted in and they're like, okay, well, this year I took the first year off because I was scared to go out and get lumber and I was scared to be part of that world. Now I know what happens. I also see that everybody still lives and makes it through it. I'm not getting on a plane. I delayed a year.
I agree.
There'll be some of that happening.
Yeah, I think the only two reasons to fear that the season's going to slow down is that they already did their project. They already did their project, or the second possibility that COVID really like lays down a wicked third wave or second wave and things lock down completely again, like March and April were, but for a longer period of time or something. Those are the only two ways that the season is slower.
But even at lockdown, like we were still moving product in lockdown. We were. Lumber yards were still, like Home Depot was still open.
Yeah.
Lumber yards were still open.
Well, we sure weren't in like March, April.
But was that?
I think
that wasn't
that
because
was
of COVID.
spring.
Though.
That wasn't COVID.
Well, some of it probably probably a bit of both.
Because usually,
but I agree,
in the
it was
spring,
probably 70% weather.
Yeah, usually in March, April, we're doing planning. And so people weren't interested to come in and look at designs, and they didn't want to talk about stuff in person. But that'll happen this year.
There was obviously some shock factor that people needed to get through and mentally process in March and April too. We all did before things got normal. And it's not going to be like that next year. It's like, it's so normalized now. Like, I never thought I'd see the day that people would be walking around here wearing face masks everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's an Asian thing. They're overpopulated. Disease spreads easier there. That they're accustomed to that. We're not. That won't ever happen here.
Yeah, and it turns out people are just like, if the government says, they just follow along. They're like, now we do this.
People would rather go out than not, too. Right?
Yes. So that's become like we're all so accustomed to this now that is happening. People are wearing face masks everywhere they go. So there's some comments here. Decorators Nick says
that's a good one. I like that one.
Depends on Tuesday. I'm assuming he means the U.S. election. Tuesday? Is that what he's talking about?
That would be Tuesday, yeah.
Is it on Tuesday?
3rd, yeah. So November 3rd is the American election.
Okay. So he thinks the whole COVID situation rides on Trump. Trump gets in, no COVID. Biden gets in, COVID goes again. You heard it here first.
You heard it here
No, I think it's the opposite.
Yeah, I think most people
Those people are saying that the COVID is overblown by the Democrats because they're trying to sewer the Republicans that are in office. So if the Republicans are back in, then the Democrats will continue to hammer on how much they're like Trump's blowing this whole thing and he's causing danger. And if Biden gets in, then it'll be like
he saved the world.
Right. Yeah.
COVID's gone.
They'll switch to downplaying it because they want him to be the savior that comes in and fixes everything. Gotcha. So all of a sudden COVID will kind of quietly just kind of, that's the theory, right?
Right. Gotcha.
TC Deck says no, and Karen Q says nope. DIYs will continue to happen. So they're both saying there's no chance that it's going to slow down next year. TC Dex actually says he's doubled his stocks in Trex and TimberTech. And Karen says, "Good for you." These two are having a fair old time in the chat here. So yeah, and he also has money set aside for the Ultimate Deck Shop IPO as well. So
that's a good one.
Let's get on that. What do we do in the winter? We prep our IPO. Okay, so let's get on to the next question, which is, what are some reasons that it may just stay steady? Do you think that it's going to maintain? Because these are the three options when you're booking product. It's like, is it going to slow down? Is it going to stay about the same? Or is it going to boost again? This is where I'm throwing my eggs.
Sounds like lots of people are saying it's going to go up again, right? It's
going
to boost again.
As far as planning goes, I hope it boosts again. And like, I'm going to set my revenue targets for a boost. Mm-hmm. But as far as ordering product, when push comes to shove and I got to bet money on it, I'm going to say it's going to stay about the same. And I think that it'll be dispersed differently throughout the months. You know what I mean? I don't think it'll be dead in April as it was this year, and I don't think it'll be as spiked as high in July as it was this year. I think it'll probably be a little bit more balanced.
Mm-hmm. Is that because since people are more comfortable with it, we're going to have more planning happening and preparing for the fact that no one's going anywhere?
Yeah, it was a double whammy this spring because of the weather too. But I do think that people just went into shell shock a little bit when this whole thing happened, and everybody pulled back and just was like, let's wait this out and see. So I think even if it was nice early in April, we probably wouldn't have seen a bunch of people running down to the store. Hell, you didn't even know if you were allowed to at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when we did get phone calls, people were calling saying, "Are you even open? Are you open? Am I allowed to come there?"
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm here. I was kind of hoping you would.
Right.
So in short of a second massive, huge wave and lockdown, I don't think that people are normalized to it now. Mm-hmm. Next year, it'll just be like, well, I'm building a deck this year. It won't the COVID thing won't even be on their minds. It'll be on their minds, but it won't be affecting their purchasing decisions anymore.
Right.
It's like, we're doing a deck this year. Yeah, there's a pandemic. It's been here for a year, whatever. That's why I'm building a deck.
Yeah.
So I think
that's true.
I'm building a pandemic deck.
Yeah.
Pandemic.
Right. And so I think I'm going to plan for it to just be similar to this year, a good solid year, but just a little bit more steady, a little bit more even across the board, as opposed to the spikes and dips we had this year. So,
yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think it would, best case scenario is it's level with this year, and this year was a bit of a spike over other years, would be my guess. So,
Quigley Cable Rail says, on the deck side of my business, And then the comment scrolled out of the way because somebody else commented. I'm already booked into mid-June. My customers are telling me travel is not a guarantee and to be prepared to have a nice yard and relax and entertain friends.
Yep.
Yeah, I think anybody who missed out this year is really kicking themselves if they don't have a nice yard.
Maybe, right? Because and so let's get to the next question then. Do we think that this is going to grow? Do we think that next year is going to be even busier than the surge that we had this year? And I think there's a lot of reasons we could say that's probably going to happen too. Right. And that's part of it. Like maybe a lot of people, because we thought at the start of this year that nobody was expecting this big boom back in March or April. We were scared nobody was going to have money to do a deck at all.
Period.
That's a conversation we were having with our peers is like, dude, people are laid off. They're home. They're not working. They're not making money. Like nobody's going to be buying anything. And then that wasn't the case. So now next year, hopefully people are kind of back to work a bit. They've figured out some sort of back to work plan, whether they're working from home, whatever. The revenue is coming back in. If they didn't build one this year, didn't fix up their yard this year, because they thought like, oh, this will be gone in a couple months. Because that was the attitude at the start of this thing too, right? It was like, we just need to lock down for a couple weeks, flatten the curve. We'll be out of this thing in a few months.
Yeah.
It's here for the long haul. Now
It's
it's
here forever.
Yeah. What was it? Somebody was talking about this in the store the other day that like pandemics are usually a 5-year cycle, right? So like if you look at the Spanish flu, it was kind of like it was a thing for like 5 years.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get that out of your brain, right? Like just from like a social perspective,
Yeah.
like psychology wise, right?
Absolutely.
Psychology major.
Yep.
Right? I got that right.
Yep. Yeah. No, you're absolutely
It's
right.
trauma, right? It's affecting
I think that's
everybody.
why people are not sending their kids back to school. They're scared of it. It's like, we don't need to be scared of it. It's like, it's the flu. It's like a really bad flu. But anyways, that's like they feared it. And so you don't just turn that off. You don't just you don't be afraid of something and then somebody comes onto the news and is like, okay, we're good now.
Everything's back to normal.
We're good then. Away we go.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. So
Decorators Nick says, just got back from Texas, and they are all looking very positive for 2021. We booked in 7 new stocking dealers already. So
wow. Probably because of
Yeah.
our podcast, right? Episode 100.
that's right. Yeah,
Quigley.
you're welcome.
You're what? Where's our kickback,
send the
decorators?
check. So yeah, like Quigley's booked. We have some contractors locally that are booked up for the spring. They already
Nice.
have some projects on the go. So
Precision 2 says should be normalized. Lots of guys are like Quigley have already booked most of their season.
yeah,
So
some FOMO.
New
going
England
on.
Deck Pro
Yeah,
says all the
I think
people who
that's what it
watched
is.
their neighbors get a deck this year
Here
will
we go.
want one next year.
Yeah, so there it is, right?
Yeah, so I think that's probably the most likely scenario is that we could continue to see an increase in numbers. And I think that things being kind of steady is also a safe way to play this game. And I just don't think that it's going to slow down. I don't think there are so many people that pulled projects forward that you're going to see this big dip, because I think it's still going to be happening. Maybe the dip is somewhere, but it's 5 years down the road.
Right. It's pretty hard to pull a project forward if it's super big too, right?
Yeah, I mean, you either have the money or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
And like booking in August isn't helping you,
Yeah.
right?
But there's also things like maybe the deck doesn't need repaired, right? Like some people have a deck that has 10 years left in it. They're still probably going to keep that. You know what I mean? They might do landscaping instead, or they might do a fence. But anyways,
and
I don't know.
like,
Who knows?
I don't have these numbers. We don't have, like, maybe we could dig up
We
this
just
data if we
make up
tried,
most things.
but we don't have this data pulled to say, like, was the average project size bigger this year? Were people doing fancier decks or bigger decks
yeah, I
because
know
they knew they'd be spending more time in the backyard? So no longer is it okay just to have a small deck, table and chairs and a barbecue. Now we want like some more usable space because we're going to be spending more time out there. Like, did that happen? Maybe.
That expendable vacation cash.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, the boost could come in that form too. Maybe it's not busier, but people spend more, or they do the composite now because this is like, no, this, I'm going to really start spending money in my backyard now. It's not just a kind of like a thing that's out there out my back door that the dog runs across to go pee. I'm going to actually have to spend some time out there. So I'm going to do lights and I'm going to do composite now.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's that too. A few more comments here. Karen Coos says, we can't get deck supplies here in New Jersey. I have a 25 by 25 deck that needs some serious repair. So anyways, it sounds like we're going to be shipping some deck supplies to Karen.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I've sorted that out.
Yeah. Okay, so next question is, what will the lumber prices do? Because this was one of the biggest effects of COVID this year was what lumber did. Very topical. What do you think that lumber and like, so we know what lumber's doing.
I was like, can I talk about this? I probably
Trees
should.
grow, right? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Yeah.
Depends.
And then what happens to them?
And then we cut them.
What do you think lumber prices are going to do next year? So this is still future telling. We know what lumber's doing now. It's dropping again.
Lumber will be less than it is now, but I think it will be more than it was in 2020. Like I think it's going to go
At the start of 2020. Yeah. You mean?
Yes.
Because in 2020 it changed a bunch.
Correct. It went up 40-some%. I think so. From the start of 2020, I think it'll be up like 25 or 30%. It'll be 25 or 30% higher than mid-season last year.
Right.
End of the season was brutal. There was people that were paying, like in Canada, a sheet of OSB was $9. They were selling it for $30-some for a sheet of OSB.
Yeah.
I believe that will settle in around the like $21 mark.
Right.
And so same with the rest of the lumber. It's going to be low right now because the demand has died off in Canada for the supply. But next spring, it'll fire up again. And I believe that the lumber prices will be 20% higher than the start of 2020. That's my guess. And it is a wild ass guess.
Yeah. Is there a song about that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Got some wag? Is that what that
I
is?
think it's a wag. Yeah.
I don't know. Everybody was wondering for a while if lumber would come back down, if it would drop. Sounds like it's coming back down right now, but that's also going into what would normally be an off season. Although we're hearing in the States, nothing's really slowed down yet.
Well, their season's a little longer, right?
Yeah.
They'll
further
go
south
until
you get,
they'll go till the end of November.
So, but what it's doing now doesn't mean that's what it's like. If this year was a lesson, just because what it's doing right now doesn't mean what it's going to be doing in 3 months from now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, it's dropping back off now into the winter season. However, that doesn't change the fact that the supply of the lumber through the chain was completely eradicated this year. So our buying group, we found out last week, the numbers were it was over 40% higher on lumber purchases this year in our buying group. And so
you guys were buying more. Is that what that?
Our whole
the
like
300
group.
stores that are in our group bought 40% more lumber than they did in 2019.
Even at the higher prices.
Doesn't matter what the price was.
Didn't matter.
They were buying lumber.
Wow.
And so the problem with that, this is why we all probably speculated as to why lumber prices went up. And it started back in COVID times when everybody got locked down and shut down.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the end dealer that was worried about what was going to happen. It was the whole chain. If the mill doesn't know if the treater's going to buy lumber, because the treater doesn't know if the dealer's going to buy lumber, because the dealer doesn't know if the customer's going to buy lumber. So it just trickles all the way to the top, and all of a sudden they get locked down. They're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to, or they're working in limited hours or limited staff. The loggers aren't cutting the trees down, and the mill's not milling it. The treater's not treating it. It's just not cycling through.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden overnight, literally at the end of April, just boom, on season, let's go.
Yeah.
And everybody was standing around worrying about what was going to happen. And so, for example, some of the distributors we talked to, they say they keep whatever the number is, 15, 20, 30% of their annual volume on the ground, just sitting in stock all the time. And that was eradicated immediately. Their yards were empty.
Gone.
Mm-hmm.
So then the dealers are like, oh shit. All of a sudden we went from 0 to 100 here. Order lumber. And the distributor's like, shit, okay, put in order. And the treater's going, I don't have any lumber to give you. Mill, right. I need some lumber. Loggers, cut some. And it's just the backlog started immediately.
Yeah.
And then 40% higher is what everybody did.
Right.
So it didn't stand a chance.
I also think that there was probably some stuff put in place at the start of the year to deal with COVID. So the mills and the treaters and all those people, they reduced staff and they laid people off. And so they didn't have the capacity to actually make. Even if they would have had all of their employees, they would have had a hard time keeping up with the demand.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing, right?
Didn't
and
matter.
then
even if it was
a normal season,
they were screwed.
Manufacturing wise, they would
Right.
have had a hard time keeping up. But they changed how they manufactured because they reduced so many people. They reduced the entire supply chain.
Right.
And so what I think is now we've had a year of this. And so they can just, like, people will wear masks. We've now operated through a season with a 40% increase and trying to figure out how to make that happen. So they're like COVID prepared now.
Mm-hmm.
So in the spring, when they're really ramping up and they're really starting to produce a bunch of treated lumber, the supply chain should still be able to make product now because they've gone a year of making product in COVID. So they know it's going to go up. They have to restock their coffers. I think the mills are going to run full capacity all winter so that they can get that 20% back on the ground. But I think their new number might be 30 or 40 on the ground is what
Right.
they're going to be trying to do.
Yeah.
And
But they're worried they can't get there too.
what's the worst that happens? It ends up sitting there for a year. That's not that bad. Like
What they're worried about now is that they still have nothing on the ground right now. They're still backfilling orders. Like we're still owed lumber, and it's November.
You guys don't want it anymore.
yeah, I don't know because we bought it
knows?
when the price was low, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe. Like from a inventory perspective, no, we don't really want it anymore. But we've been told they're going to get that cleared up at the end of November, and that's all great and fine. But the treaters are also saying like, okay, so we're hoping that by the end of this season that we can catch up to what we had for back orders at least, but we're probably not going to get a chance to put lumber back on the ground in our facilities because once you get too far into winter, they can't treat frozen lumber.
Oh.
And so as soon as the temperatures drop too much, they can still cut it down and get it ready. Like maybe they can still stockpile it out in the mills. But the treaters can't do anything with it again until it comes in because as they said, like you guys on our call last week, they were like, I'm sure you guys all saw some lumber show up this year that wasn't treated properly because it was treated when it was frozen. He's like, now we're fighting with that too. We're just barely going to catch up before the freeze sets in and can't treat anymore. And then we will have no chance to actually like restock our own yards. It's just going to be like product's going to start rolling out in the spring again to fulfill the orders that you have. We've only got the capacity to do X number of millions of feet and that's already been ordered.
Yeah.
Like you guys have already ordered all of that. So we're already at our capacity. So we're going to be limiting how much you can order.
And then
and
you can't just put up another treatment plant. Like these are multi-billion-dollar facilities, right?
It's not just some guy painting
Million.
painting
in
wood
your bathtub.
in a bathtub.
I can do shorts in my bathtub. I can do 5-foot pieces.
We set up a bunch of kiddie pools outside.
Everybody's tied a shirt, right?
Yeah.
It's like that, but with trees.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of good comments. I recommend we get into a few.
We'll
of
get
them.
through some of these. Precision Construction says if COVID restrictions stay in place, lumber treaters, manufacturers, etc., are still going to be unable to keep up again.
Yeah.
So he's right. They might get closer to caught up, and then the season starts and they fall behind again. Perfect View Deck Simon says 100% staying higher. The prices, I think he means, because people are still paying and supply is still shit. New England Deck Pros says a lot of people are calling now, getting ready now, knowing hard.
Knowing how hard.
Knowing how hard it was to get contractors this year.
So I was gonna ask, is that gonna be something that's gonna help the lumber if people are like pre-booking their decks for next year? Like if contractors are coming in and you're planning your order and you order, and so they kind of have at least an idea of where the season's gonna go.
Like there is no amount of people that are going to walk through our doors in the next month that will impact how much lumber we're going to buy.
Oh, okay.
Like there's no way you're going to get like 1,000 people walking and be like, we're doing decks next year to affect what we were already planning on ordering.
Yeah, because I think we make our decisions based on the previous years and then what we project for this year. And it doesn't matter to me if New England Deck Pros is buying it or if Perfect View Simon's buying it. I just know that somebody's going to buy it, right? And so if we have a contractor walk in and tell us, I got 10 projects on the go, it's like, well, I already kind of figured you would because you did 10 the year before.
He just didn't, like, he would have come in April anyway, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that's
what were you
going to
pointing
affect
at?
anything. But
you pointed at something.
I wanted to pull up a video and I was going to use your phone so I could still watch comments, but I'll do it after.
We have the power.
I was going to say, maybe I could just tell.
All right, tell Bryce.
You could
Go
text
to
text
TikTok.
it. Okay. Text it to me.
Go to TikTok and look up. See, I don't know what it's called.
Oh, this is why.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how you're going to find it. It's like the naming of a saw.
The
If you can
name?
find a guy that finds like saw.
Because then
sawing.
Okay,
Anyway,
Quickly,
Quickly Cable Rail says lumber is a commodity like gas. It peaks when there's a shortage, and when it drops, it rarely comes down to its origin price unless there's a glut in the market.
which might happen this winter, right? We might end up getting like some stuff stocked back up. It'll come down. It's coming down right now. Like lumber's low right now.
Yeah.
So
we know it's already it's happening up at the
here
high end. It just hasn't filtered down yet.
Boston exteriors.
Our supplier in Boston bought really high, and then next week it came down. Now the yards around them bought lower. They are stuck with lumber that's 25% higher than everyone else.
Right? So there it is.
That's the risk.
That's awful. And so what do you do? Like we could end up in that situation. What do you do? Like my vote would be like, okay, well, let's just sell it at cost. Like I can't.
Well, I think
we can't be 25% higher than everybody else.
Yeah.
And
I think the program, the way so the distributors are changing their programs this year to try to account for this fact, because they knew that nobody's going to buy lumber, like book in $1 million of the lumber at the prices to what they were 3 weeks ago.
Not a chance.
It's like, it's higher than it's ever been. Can you commit to buying a year's worth of lumber next year right now? No. I would rather take the chance that it goes up a little bit more versus it coming down.
Yeah.
And not be committed to it. So nobody was going to do that. So therefore they put in all these programs and these whatever to try to get people to put their orders in. Otherwise, we were going to be in the same situation because the orders wouldn't have gone in and the mills wouldn't have then you're back to square one before the season even starts. Yeah. So these programs have changed, and so this guy that bought high and it dropped, that's shitty.
But it's the game, right? It's like that's what it is. That's what it's like when you trade stock.
That same guy made bank when he bought low and the prices went way up, assuming he changed his price. However his pricing strategy is, whether it's to adjust when the price changes or adjust when inventory runs out, it works on both sides.
Yep. At some point, there's a win.
If you can find it and text it to me, I'll be able to get it out faster.
Okay. Perfect View Deck Simon says, never been booked this far in advance. Pool companies around here are fully booked for 2021. All those backyards will need decks and landscaping. That's a great point.
Yep.
What else do we have for comments here? Precision Construction says, I'll just keep converting guys to steel and get that lumber demand down.
I was going to say,
he really is, though.
Sure. You don't need to treat steel.
He's got Eric. He's got Eric on. Did you see that?
Yeah, there's been a few guys that have jumped on now since that podcast, so that's good.
Okay, so
speaking of which, it sounds like, was this something that we can... because by the time this podcast goes live,
next week,
gets posted, it'll be old news anyway, that Trex Elevations is going away.
I really should have had a bump prepared for that.
So steel game's increasing, but for whatever reason, Trex is dropping their elevations line. So it went on an email, so I don't think it's super proprietary information.
I don't feel like they were killing it with that anyways.
Why do you think they're getting rid of it? With steel trending up? Is it just too hard to
steel
manufacture?
Trending up, or is it just we 14
think
of us on a podcast that think it's trending up? You know what I mean?
I think it probably is. I don't know. I think it's probably a result of likely it wasn't likely it wasn't selling too well, likely. And of the guys that are popping up and doing steel, what are they doing? Well, they're doing Fortress, or they're doing Bailey Metals, or they're doing just some sort of light gauge steel option. They're not going for the Trex branded stuff as much, right? So maybe the market's growing, yet they're losing in the market, maybe. So they're just kind of, or maybe they have something else coming. That's the other option too, right? I know in the email they sent out, there was here's the replacement products coming up, and there wasn't one for Elevations, but that doesn't mean there won't be. Yeah. Maybe it's not ready to announce it. They could. I'd be surprised if they didn't have something else coming up. And I wouldn't be surprised if a company like Trex wouldn't go to aluminum or something.
Right?
You know what I mean? They're not scared of a premium price point.
Just change the game.
Maybe.
Heavy gauged aluminum. Who's got that? Dexpan, right? That was a heavy gauge aluminum.
Yes. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go down that path, maybe. Who knows?
That was a nice system. I'm still looking for the video.
You're still looking.
Precision Construction says the guys at Fortress will vary steel going up, Bailey too. Verify. Oh, steel prices also going up, they're saying. So, yeah. So lumber prices, very volatile. I think, I'm going to try to. I think that likely what's going to happen is that the season will likely start a little bit lower than what it ended at this year.
Yeah.
To your point, it'll go back down a bit. And then as the year goes on, I think we're just going to see it climb again. It may not be as drastic because we might have a handle a little bit better on things next year, but it depends what the year does. If it's going to be as busy as people are saying it's going to, like if it grows 40% again, then it's going to happen again.
Yep.
So, yeah, get in. The next question is, will there be shortages? And I think this question is from not just lumber, but anything. So we experienced shortages not only with lumber this year, but we also experienced it with just about every major decking brand. We experienced it with fasteners and hardware from everybody.
Yep.
Like literally everybody had shortages this year.
Yep.
And the reasoning may have been different. The reasoning sometimes was because they couldn't make it fast enough. The reasoning sometimes was in some cases their factories were converted to ventilator. In the case of Toyo Good, their manufacturer's whole plant was converted into a ventilator manufacturing facility instead.
Yep.
So they weren't even allowed to make product. It could have been because logistically they couldn't get it out of Asian markets where it's manufactured because of logistics.
Yep.
Like there's a whole wide reason as to why supply was short this year. Do we think that that's going to continue to happen this year or next year? Sorry. It was very frustrating trying to manage selling materials and having back orders on everything.
Like if we've decided that everything else is going to be as it was this year, we're going to sell lots of product and people are still going to be building and COVID is still going to exist. We're going to have supply issues. We're going to have all kinds of supply issues because it won't be manufactured as fast as it needs to be. And it certainly won't be shipped the way it needs to be. And so, trying to catch up with the backlog is part of it. And then also dealing with the new demand, new increase.
Can you text it to me?
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to have, I sure hope that it's smoother than it was this year. And I know that some people are saying that they expect it will be. Like
the argument could be made that it might be smoother because we have now done it.
Maybe.
We've been through the experience
now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think we're out of the clear on this. I think that if it's going to be as busy as everybody's saying it's going to be, then there's going to be some issues with getting product again. That's just the way it is. Like there's so much uncertainty that nobody's going to ramp up and just sit on a bunch of inventory right now in the event that maybe it happens. So like us, right? And we're not, everybody's saying like, oh, it's going to be really busy next year. Yeah, that's great, but I'm not going to book 40% more material.
Nope.
Just in case. Like I can't afford to not do that, right?
But I wonder if that's different. So we had some issues with Simpson. Yeah. But I don't think Simpson's in a similar purchasing position as us. You know what I mean? Simpson's strong tie.
They can afford to put some more material in the ground.
Yeah.
Right.
They can, they're not as cash flow dependent probably as a smaller operation. Right.
So. Yeah. So hopefully that smooths out because it was a struggle this year, obviously from everybody in every market getting product. Shortages.
Yeah, and some of it was product related, some of it was shipping related, right?
There's some things we still haven't gotten from Simpson this year.
Yep.
Like we ordered like BCS 24Zs, like the little post to beam connectors.
But yeah.
We never got them.
For the whole year.
Ever.
Yep.
Like it was just like it was a SKU that they just weren't making.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting way to go about trying to run a business it's a pretty key component to a lot of our builds. Next question, will logistics continue to struggle? So this year, part of the reason people couldn't get stuff to you, there were shortages because it wasn't because they didn't have the product. It was because they couldn't get it to you because the trucking industry was overwhelmed and expensive because they were also in high demand, right? So they were able to charge whatever they wanted.
Yep.
And so we felt that all the time. It was like some of our distributors that we had agreements with at the start of the year to say like, you're going to ship this much and at this dollar amount, it'll ship for free or it's a fixed rate or whatever. They're like, we can't do this. Like literally when we put this agreement together, it was $1,200 for a truck. Now we're getting quoted $2,500 for the same truck to do the same route.
Yeah.
And it was like and they sometimes just don't show up because somebody calls and offers them $2,600.
Yes.
So he's like, I don't know how we're supposed to manage this right now.
I hope that because we have had a year of experience with this, I'm hoping that the internet's off.
I got it.
I'm hoping that we have some experience with this and we've been through it and that helps. I just like, hopefully everybody ships properly, or at least close to properly this year.
Yeah,
Because it's not the first time. It's not,
went, this is the new norm. Add 40% more trucks to the fleet.
Nope.
Right? And so unlikely that that's going to fix itself. It's
But they may have added a couple.
And especially when, what's the point? If you have a truck
Yeah.
and you
I
can
see where
haul
you're going.
things for $100 a load,
Yep.
and now you're making $200 a load, would you add another truck to go back and make $100 a load again?
No, but I'd run 2 trucks for $200 a load.
If you knew it was still going to leave you in a shortage. Yeah.
Yeah. I got that video up. We can go whenever you guys want, but
Okay.
we're back up.
So you got like the TikTok video?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll set the context of it here a little bit once I get logged in here. So the reason this came up is because of who was the post here that was just like, who just made that post? It was like nowing and now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I thought of this. On TikTok,
New England Dex or something.
there's a video of a guy and he's dressed in different costumes and it's like a cut sequence thing where he's pretending he's talking to his class or whatever. He's like, what are we going to name this new tool? And the guy holds up a picture of a saw, like a handsaw. And they have this conversation about what to name the new tool. So go ahead and run the clip because it's very funny.
Okay, here we go.
Now, who had this thing? That was me. Did you come up with a name? I did. I thought we could call that a saw. Okay, well, see, that might be confusing because that's a conjugation of a super common verb that people use every day. I think it'll be fine. This will also be a verb too, by the way. It'll mean to use this tool. Well, okay, but what if someone sees the tool and then later wants to tell somebody about having done that? Well, then they'll have seen a saw. That's not a problem. Yes, but also they saw a saw. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, and if they saw it in action, they saw a saw. Well, what's the big deal if someone saw a saw sign? You also have to consider if someone saws through a jar of salsa. Why would someone saw salsa? Well, I don't know, but that would mean that they saw a saw salsa. Well, I think it's a great name, even if someone saw salsa. You know what? I'm gonna buy some salsa and saw salsa just to say I saw salsa.
So good.
Oh, that was really good.
Yeah. So anyways, that little comment from New England Deck Pros, nowing,
So that,
reminded me of that.
it's so funny. That was when people say the word seen, it drives me crazy. I seen someone. I seen that happen.
Have you seen that new movie that came out?
Right, but when you say have, then it's fine.
Yeah, you
Right?
just got to use it in the proper way.
I know. So people, yeah.
Have you saw that movie?
Yeah. Nobody ever says that.
Have you seen it?
Have you? And it's okay. Every
Are you
time
sawing it?
I seen a movie the other day. It's like, nope, you didn't seen it. Anyways,
Next
question.
Government stimulus.
Uh,
Is that a question?
Government stimulus?
Yeah, there it is. See?
I just read it as I wrote it. I didn't put any more to that. Where I'm going with this, I guess, is this COVID thing is obviously more than a 2-month struggle.
So there was some this year. Government's kicked out some cash.
Right. And so does that continue? There's
So
potentially a government change in the States that may change what kind of packages they're putting out. But
I'm part of a board called the WRLA, Western Retail Lumber Association, and they've been lobbying the federal government to do like tax breaks, right, on kickbacks for renovations and et cetera. And so they had lobbied the Sask Party before the election, and during the campaign, the Sask Party said they were going to bring back a home tax credit, like a home renovation tax credit.
Nice.
And so that's now in place, effective October 1st of 2020.
Yep.
You can, what is it, 10% of up to $20,000?
You can claim
$21,000.
10.5% of your renovation materials purchase up to a maximum of $20,000. So you can get back $2,100 on your renovation materials. That's
pretty good.
Has to be a permanent addition to your house. Like, it can't be like furniture or something. But if you build a deck, build a garage.
What if I screw my furniture in the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's like,
I'm leaving that here when I sell it.
Yeah,
So
it's stuck.
Yeah, the idea is like windows, siding,
Yeah,
insulation, furnaces, decking, flooring.
like future investment.
Yeah.
The idea behind it is
increase the value of
to
your house.
stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind it. And I think that that's such a great way to do it, so that like the WRLA has been talking about this for years, and it used to be around. It was a great tax credit for as far as the provincial government's concerned.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the federal government do that.
Yeah.
So maybe the government stimulus packages, or maybe the support by the federal government isn't like, here's a blank check come fill this form out and we'll send you 30 or 40 grand. That maybe it's like, we actually want to get the wheels turning. We need the cogs to move. So the way we're going to do this is incentivize it, right?
Well, and this is a reason that we didn't really talk about in the does the season grow next year, but it could as a result of these types of things that they put out there, because this program, it's in place for 2 years. It'll be until the end of 2022. So you don't have to do it next year necessarily, but you have to do it in the either next year or the year after. So if you have a renovation project that's on your 3-year plan or even your 5-year plan, and you can get 10% of it covered, 10.5% of it covered if you do it sooner and later, like that's, why wouldn't you do that? So build the deck, get 10.5% of it paid for by getting your taxes back on it.
Like,
now, so
why not?
Do you think you would, what would you do with that 10.5%? Would you buy better materials? Or would you?
No, I would just save it.
Save it.
Yeah, I would just
Pizza Hut subscription service.
Pizza Hut subscription service.
Yeah, I would just save it. Why not? You have an opportunity to save 10%.
Yeah.
Because it'll just come back in your tax return, right? Like you won't get it till the following spring, whatever. But I mean, it's gonna be cash in your pocket at that point. So or maybe people will choose to spend a little bit. Like maybe they were going to do lights, but they're not going. Like I don't know if that'll happen. I feel like because at the time you still got to pay the bill. Like your deck's $18,000. It's not 16 today. It's $18,000 still today. So I don't know that it'll influence it. What people were going to do. Like, we're going to build a deck and get that credit, but we're not going to go out and splurge now because of this.
We should look into setting the timing on the finance it to land at the same time as like when people get their money back, when they get their taxes done. That would be a full year though. But if we were in the middle of next season, we could do like 6 months deferred or 9 months deferred, right?
Right.
Through finance it program, and then you don't have to pay until they actually get their taxes back.
So who knows what else comes up if the economy continues to struggle through because of what's happening with COVID or what's about to happen with COVID, then you might see more stimulus come out. I don't know if there's any money left to give from the federal government.
Where would it come from?
But in the States, you might see something, right? That market could, depending on their election, I don't know what each party's proposing, if they have specifics around a government stimulus, COVID recovery grant thing happening. But if something were to happen, then that could certainly affect the industry again.
Yep. And positively, right?
Big time positively. And so the final thing we want to talk about today was, what does this all mean for contractors day to day? The protocols that were kind of like, there's never been like a formal protocol put in place, to my knowledge, in most markets to say like, hey, contractors, when you're going to somebody's house, here's what you need to do. Aside from the generalist, wear a mask, stay 6 feet away, there's never been somebody say like, oh, the government has never encouraged like, do things this way, use more Zoom meetings, et cetera. But naturally, now that this thing is kind of like here to stay, this way of life, this way of doing things, at least for the medium term, what does this look like for contractors? What do they have to change in their day-to-day business now? So, the old process was somebody calls, somebody emails, somebody books a meeting somehow. You show up at somebody's house. You generally walk with the homeowner, sit down with them at their kitchen table, potentially walk outside with them. You're very in close contact communication for 30 minutes, 60 minutes,
more than
2
15
hours.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Depends on the job. And so that's kind of not okay now. And so how do these guys now adjust to that? What do you do? Well, some people that started this year were getting into doing, like saying like, I don't need to come to your house at all. We can do this all by Zoom meeting. I might have to show up at some point to measure. You don't need to be there.
Yeah.
But we can do the majority of this virtually. And so I'm sure that's going to continue.
And we had some contractors that really liked that.
I was going to say, it's an efficiency for them.
Way more efficient.
Yeah.
Your 2-hour meeting about the color of your deck boards turns into 15 minutes.
Well, people are prepared.
Well, you eliminate the travel time too.
And that too.
Right? Like if you have an 8-hour day and you're doing estimates, you can do
That's cute.
4 or 5.
Who has 8-hour days?
But if that's your job today, you can get 4 or 5 done.
Yep.
And if you're in a big city, you're probably not getting that done either.
No, not
So
at
because
all.
with travel time, even like every meeting's like you're committing an hour and a half, 2 hours minimum to it.
Correct.
And so virtually, like you eliminate the travel time, which is half of it. Now you can get 10 done a day.
Yep.
Click next, right? And you're like half an hour with that person, then half an hour with this person.
And like we did one at the start of the year with a couple that they basically took their phone out to the backyard, showed us everything we needed to see. Like there was nothing I was able to get all the information I needed from them. They happened to already have their measurements and everything too, so I didn't go measure. I just like it was they had their own contract or whatever else, so it wasn't like we were needed to like it wasn't our responsibility to make sure the measurements are all right or whatever. But we were able to do it 100% virtually on a Zoom meeting. Nice. It was fantastic, and they can show you with their phone. Like they don't have to sit in front of a computer. Do it on your phone. That way you can walk around and show like, oh, this is here, but there's this big tree right here. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I just need to see it. It doesn't need to be in person.
Right.
Pictures or a Zoom call works.
So in the beginning, right? Like
not in the beginning. And it, like I said, you can always run by there and have a double take at something if you need to.
Well, it allows you to batch those measurements too, right? Like go out and do 10 measurements in a day.
Yep.
Right.
So I think that was something that came out of COVID that maybe should, like regardless of COVID, maybe that should stick around.
There's a few things that I wouldn't mind having stick around, right?
Yeah, like people staying away from me.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things, man. I love how much room there is in a grocery store. It's like it'll be all these little circles to be like, stand here.
Exactly.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I don't need people like bumping into me.
Although
I have not been hit in the heels at Costco in months where like a cart has hit me in the heels. That hasn't happened in months.
Slow walker.
Slow. Yeah, that's your fault.
It is not my fault.
Maybe you should get some of those rollerblade shoes.
I should. Anyways, what were you going to say?
It'll be 12 years from now.
It's okay.
12 years from now, and Wade will be screaming at people in the grocery store, 6 feet, bitch!
He's going to wear a hula hoop everywhere.
COVID was eradicated in 2024. What do you... 6 feet! Anything? What else? What else kind of changed for contractors or should may change going forward? So distance meetings, like Zoom meetings kind of thing. What about the on-site actual work? So then you get there and there's no way to do that from a distance. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't know that the actual process of building a deck can be that much different. It's already fairly socially distanced, you know. It's like you and your crew, but you and your crew are fairly tight. But you rode there together. And so.
I was going to say, this might be another good thing that the customers can't sit too close and watch what you're doing, right?
I told a customer the other day, was like, you can't. So we were doing a job for some people, and he was outside with a tape measure measuring the spaces between boards for and I talked to our contractor and was like, how's it going? He was like, it's awful. Like he just sits there and watches while we put this stuff down. So I phoned the customer and was like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't be measuring spaces while the guys are there, and you can't be on the deck watching them work, because you're just going to piss them off, and then they're going to want to get out of there so fast. They're going to do shoddy work to get out of there as fast as they can because they can't stand you.
Yeah.
So don't do that. If you want to like go out there at the end of the day and measure the spaces in the evening when they're not there, fine, do that. Then call me and we'll fix them. But do not be doing that in front of them. And he was just like, well, it's my deck and it's my money. And I was like, right. And if you want it to look good, then
you got to give us a shot at doing it.
Give them the give them the room. Don't breathe down their neck, because only thing that's going to happen is everybody in this situation is going to be mad. You're mad that they're working too fast and they're not doing a good job. They're mad that you're there, and I'm mad because you're both calling me. Right? And so like
it's the worst.
Give them some room.
Yeah.
And even if they're nice, like I've had jobs where they were super nice. They weren't out there being nitpicky and shitty.
Yeah.
But it's just like, lady, I'm not here to have an 8-hour conversation. I'm trying to work. Like, if you'd like me to get this done, I can't be constantly paying attention to your questions while I'm trying to do things. Like, you want to come out and say hi and whatever, that's fine. But don't hang around all day in the way. So, and then the worst ones are the ones that are sitting there and think that they should be telling you how to do your job. And it's like, if you knew how to do this, you'd be doing it. You hired somebody to do this for a reason. Yeah. You chose us for a reason.
The guy was
believe that we could do the job, so let us do the job.
The guy was an engineer, right? And not that I don't like engineers, but they're micromanagers. That's why they're good at what they do, right? And so he was like, talking millimeters, and I was like, dude,
they have unreasonable expectations.
We're building
in my
it.
opinion.
Yeah, really, right?
They design everything on paper all day. Of course, everything fits together.
Yep.
You can't do that in real life.
Nope. Yep. You sure cannot. So. Anyways, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, because in a CAD program, a 2x8 is 1.5 by 7.25. Exactly.
Every time.
All of them, and they're straight.
No such thing as variance.
Yeah, it's wild, right? And there's other stuff that you do. You're like your accident. you have to hide things when you build. Not because
it's
you're
gonna
trying to
hurt
hide
anybody.
things, not because you're going to make the deck bad and you're trying to cut corners. It's just like, that's just the reality of it, because the 2x8s aren't all the same. You have to hide that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching, I can't hide it because you're watching. Now you know to look for it. But if you're not there and it happens and you don't see it, because you don't know to look for it. Anyways,
I think everybody, you ask any contractor what they do for a living, they're like, I build decks, or I do. And it's like, no. What do you actually do all day long? Though? Oh, I solve problems.
solve problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what a contractor is. You solve problems
Build
all
puzzles.
day long, because
Yeah.
it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You want to 3D print a house? Sure, that might be perfect, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're working with real materials and real people, and there's problems all the time.
So, so there's no COVID protocols based on that rant that we just went on.
Yeah. So Design Builder says design
That's
builders
what came out of that.
What came out of that was like, stay the F off my site.
Yeah. I mean, we came up with two things, and both of them were quite beneficial to the contractor as well. It's like both of them are efficiencies and like less stress on the job. So like these are things the guys are going to try because they have to, and then be like, that actually is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You
what
know
about
what we
the
should do? We
homeowner?
should
What
always not let people be out here watching. That's what we should do from now. Man, it's been way better than the last 3 jobs we were on. And they'll just
and I'll
adopt
bet
it.
your customers are probably happier at the end of that too, right? Because they
Yeah.
they don't have this like tension with the builder. It's just like the deck is done and it looks great.
Yep. Design Builders says Design Builders has been doing virtual meetings with clients for a few years. It's changed our business model. We no longer do in-person visits. The response has been amazing.
Yeah.
Because you know what? People don't want to be bothered themselves anymore either. The customer, like if they can do something without having to be somewhere at a certain time and meet a stranger and blah, blah, like I'm sure a lot of people are like, hell yeah, if I can do this from work at 2 p.m. while I'm sitting at my office, that's fantastic. I can do this sitting at home and I don't have to worry about like somebody coming over and what's like,
And
that's great.
And
Most
honestly,
people would love that.
yeah, nobody wants people showing. I don't know that nobody, but a lot of people don't want you coming over. So a contractor works all day and then shows up at your house at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock because that works really well for them because they've finished building. It's like it maybe doesn't work that well for you. Your kids have sports, which like those got canceled, but there will be sport again, right? So like, or you're having dinner, or you want to visit with your family, or whatever, and instead you actually have to have Mike on a bike roll
Mike
in
on a bike.
and start talking about how amazing he is, right? And it's just like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Well, and then even the odds of like, we know people are very familiar with like contractors miss appointments or they're late because of a million different reasons. But the odds of that happening when a guy's sitting at his desk all day just doing dial-in conversations, like you've eliminated a lot of the things that cause a guy to be late or miss an appointment.
Correct.
And much easier just to text and be like, hey, I'm a little bit behind right now. Can we just move this meeting back 10 minutes than it is to, and then it's probably fine. You're not, the person on the other end is not out a bunch or whatever, but it's easier to kind of adjust things and not miss times, whatever. Because then there's no traffic.
Yep.
So your one meeting runs 5 minutes late. It means you're 5 minutes late, not 5 minutes plus all the travel time and whatever else.
Yeah.
Oh, there's traffic. Oh, there's an accident or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, I think a lot of these things will probably be adopted long-term. So
I'd like to see that. That'd be good.
would be very good. Bryce?
Is that it?
That was the last question
That's
we had.
it?
Do you have any other questions?
I got nothing.
You wanted to fly by or no? Nothing.
Nothing.
COVID of 2021. General consensus of the Instagram machine was that it's going to be another booming year. And
Yeah, and production's still going to be down. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a tough time getting stuff.
yeah.
I think all of the manufacturers are running around pounding on their chest being like, we're working super hard and it's going to be great. I
Yeah.
don't think that's going to actually happen.
It's maybe going to be slightly better, but we're still going to have some issues for sure. Yeah. Anyways, that's good news for all of us, I guess, that are in the industry. It's going to be booming next year. We'll see you next week.
To the Ultimate Deck Podcast. Now you know what we're about. Check the site, come and shop. UltimateDeckShop.com. Hit us right away for sponsorships, or tell us if you want to collaborate. Let's go. Check us out on any social networks. Thank you for listening.